For decades, one book has haunted the darkest corners of fiction, the Necronomicon. But what if I told you the most terrifying book ever imagined wasn't, well, entirely imaginary? What if its power and its danger have roots in a reality far, far older than any of us think? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of myth to find the unsettling truth that might be hiding underneath. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll talk about the legend everyone knows. Then, we'll introduce two, let's call them prophets of the abyss, who were walking these strangely parallel paths. From there, we'll trace that connection way back to ancient Sumeria, dig into the book that claims to be the real Necronomicon, and wrap it all up with a warning that, honestly, hasn't lost any of its punch over the thousands of years. All right, let's dive right in. We have to start with the story most people know. The Necronomicon, for all intents and purposes, is seen as one of the greatest props in horror fiction ever. But that's the big question we're tackling today, isn't it? Is this thing purely a brilliant literary device? Or is there some hidden truth buried deep inside all that horror? Okay, so the official story comes from H.P. Lovecraft, the undisputed father of cosmic horror. He basically invented the Necronomicon for his mythology. In his stories, it's this ancient, forbidden book written by this figure he calls the Mad Arab, and it's just packed with rituals to call up these nightmare beings from outside our reality. For Lovecraft, it was just fantastic world-building, a terrifying piece of fiction that just felt a little too real. Now, this is where our story gets really, really strange. Because at the very same time Lovecraft was writing about these made-up horrors, another guy was out there trying to conjure them, for real. Let's meet these two prophets of the abyss. I mean, look at this. On one side, you have Howard Phillips Lovecraft, a quiet, reclusive writer from Rhode Island who swore up and down that his cosmic monsters were just bad dreams put to paper. On the other side, you've got Aleister Crowley, a world-famous, infamous magician, a prophet who called himself the Great Beast and claimed he was channeling messages from beings beyond our world. One guy wrote fiction, the other practiced magic. You couldn't find two more different people. And yet, these two men who never crossed paths, never even knew of each other really, were somehow tapping into the exact same ancient, terrifying power. They just had no idea. So what gives? What was the connection? How could a horror writer and a world-famous occultist working completely separately be drawing from the same nightmarish well? Well, the answer, it turns out, was buried for thousands of years in the sands of the ancient world. Sumeria. That's the key. This almost forgotten civilization that popped up thousands of years ago in what we now call Iraq. You see, pretty much everything we think of as Western magic, summoning rituals, exorcisms, planetary gods, even this whole idea of a cosmic war between light and dark, it all starts right here. The Sumerians were the very first ones to write it all down. And once you see the parallels, you can't unsee them. Lovecraft's big bad monster, Cthulhu, well, it's almost a perfect match for the Sumerian Cthulhu, which means man of the underworld. His mindless god Azathoth? It sounds a whole lot like Azathoth, a Sumerian title for a lord of magicians. And that abyss that obsessed both Lovecraft and Crowley? The Sumerians called it the Absu. Come on, this is not a coincidence. This is a lost tradition bubbling back up to the surface. Which finally brings us to the Simon Necronomicon, a book that claims to be the real deal, the actual physical grimoire of this lost Sumerian tradition that might have been the spark for all these legends. So the book is basically laid out like a practical how-to manual. It kicks off with the story of the Mad Arab, telling you how he found all this stuff. Then it gives you a step-by-step guide for initiating yourself through 7 planetary gates. It's got the actual spells, the conjurations, and even a list of the 50 names of the god Marduk, the hero who beat the ancient ones in the original Sumerian myths. At the very heart of this system are 3 incredibly important symbols. First up, we have the RRR. This is the sigil of the Covenant, kind of like a reminder to the good guy elder gods that they promise to protect humanity. Next is the Ega, the elder sign. This is the key. This is what you use in the rituals to actually call on the power of those gods for help. And finally, you have the Bendar, the sigil of the Watcher. This one summons a super powerful, non-human being whose entire job is to stand guard and protect the magician while they're doing these incredibly dangerous rituals. So the central practice in the book is all about climbing this sort of cosmic ladder. The magician has to pass through 7 gates, and each one is tied to a planetary god, starting with Nana for the moon and going all the way up to Ninib for Saturn. And with every gate you pass through, you unlock a whole new level of power and secret knowledge. But, and this is a huge but, for all this talk about power, the book is just loaded with something else. Really stark, absolutely terrifying warnings. This is not a game. This line right here from the editor's introduction, it is maybe the single most chilling thing in the entire book. See, in almost every other magical tradition, there's an off switch, right? A banishing ritual to make whatever you summoned go away. But the warning here is that the powers in this book are so ancient, so primal, that our modern safety nets, they just don't work. You have to get this. The system doesn't deal with demons like we think of them. These are primal forces that were here before people, before our modern magical systems, before any of our symbols of protection were even invented. Trying to control them with our tools would be like trying to stop a tsunami with a garden fence. The warning is crystal clear. Do not mess with this stuff lightly. Which leaves us with one last, kinda haunting thought. We've seen these incredible connections between Lovecraft's fiction and the reality of ancient Sumeria. So if that part of the story is true, what does that say about all the warnings? If the power is real, are the dangers real too?